Feeling irritated and confused, I walk back through town, doing my best to ignore the stares and whispers. I stop to watch the horses in the paddock being groomed by the guards for the journey to the encampment, their manes and tails braided with red ribbons, just like us. And it occurs to me, that's how they think of us. We're nothing more than in-season mares for breeding. Hans brings one of the horses closer so I can admire its mane, the intricate plating, but we don't speak. I'm not allowed to call him by his name in public, just Guard. But I've known him since I was 7 years old. I'll never forget going to the healing house that afternoon to find Father, and instead finding Hans lying there all alone with a bag of bloody ice between his legs. At the time, I didn't understand. I thought it was some kind of accident. But he was 16, born to a woman of the labor house. He'd been given a choice: become a guard or work in the fields for the rest of his life. Being a guard is a respected position in the county. They get to live in town, in a house with maids. They're even allowed to buy cologne made from herbs and exotic citrus at the apothecary, a privilege Hans takes full advantage of. Their duties are light in comparison to the fields, maintaining the gallows, controlling a rowdy guest or two from the north, escorting the Gracier girls to and from the encampment, and yet most choose the fields. Father says it's a simple procedure, a small cut and snip to free them of their urges. And maybe that's true, but I think the pain lies elsewhere, in having to live among us, being reminded day in and day out of everything that's been taken away from them. I don't know why I wasn't afraid to approach him, but that day in the healing house, when I sat down next to him and held his hand, he began to weep. I'd never seen a man cry before. I asked him what was wrong, and he told me it was a secret. I said I was good at keeping secrets, and I am. I'm in love with a girl, Olga Vetron, but we can never be together, he said. Why? I asked. If you love someone, you should be with them. He explained that she was a Gracier girl, that yesterday she'd received a veil from a boy and would have no choice but to marry him. He told me that he'd always planned on working in the fields, but he couldn't stand the idea of being away from her. At least, if he joined the guard, he'd be able to be close to her, protect her, watch her children grow up, even pretend they were his own. I remember thinking it was the most romantic thing in the world. When Hans left for the encampment, I thought maybe when they saw each other, they'd run away, forsake their vows. But when the convoy returned, Hans looked as if he'd seen a ghost. His beloved didn't make it home. Her body was unaccounted for. They didn't even find her ribbon. Her little sister was banished to the outskirts that day. She was only a year older than me at the time. It made me worry that much for my sisters, but also about what would happen to me if they didn't make it back. Come winter, when I saw Hans alone in the stable, practicing his braiding, his cold fingers deftly weaving in and out of the chestnut tail with the ribbon, I asked him about Olga. What happened to her? A shadow passed over his face. As he walked toward me, he stroked his hand over his heart again and again, as if he could somehow put it back together again. A tic he carries to this day. Some of the girls make fun of him for it, the constant rubbing sound it makes. But I always felt sorry for him. "It wasn't meant to be," he whispered. "Will you be okay?" I asked. "I have you to look after now," he said, a hint of a smile in his voice. And he did. He stood in front of me in the square to block my view of the most brutal punishments. He helped me sneak into the meeting house to spy on the men. He even told me when the guards had their rounds, so I could steer clear of them when sneaking out. Other than Michael and the girl from my dreams, he was my only friend. "Are you scared?" he whispers. I'm surprised to hear his voice. He usually isn't brazen enough to speak to me in public, but I'll be leaving soon. "Should I be?" I whisper back. He's opening his mouth to say something when I feel someone tugging on my dress. I whip around, ready to clobber Tommy Pearson or whoever touched me. But I see my two little sisters, Clara and Penny, covered in goose feathers. "Do I even want to know?" I ask, trying to stifle a laugh. "You gotta help us." Penny licks a sticky substance off her fingers. I can smell it from here. Sugar maple sap. "We were supposed to fetch Father's parcel at the apothecary, but we got waylaid." Clara rescues her, giving me that confident grin. "Can you fetch it so we can get cleaned up before Mother comes home?" "Please, pretty please," Penny chimes in. "You're our favorite sister. Do us this one favor before you leave us for a whole year." When I look up, Hans is already at the stables. I wanted to say goodbye, but I imagine goodbyes are harder for him than most. "Fine," I agree, just to get them to stop whining. "But you better hurry. Mother's in a mood today." They take off running, laughing and pushing each other. And I want to tell them to enjoy it while it lasts, but they won't understand. And why taint the last bit of freedom they have? Taking a deep breath, I head to the apothecary. I haven't been since that hot July night, but there's a part of me that wants to face the ugly truth, to be reminded of where I could end up if I'm not careful. The bell jingles as I open the door, the tinny metallic sound setting my teeth on edge. "Tyranny, What a pleasant surprise. Michael's father takes in an eyeful. When I don't blush, stammer, or avert my eyes, Mr. Welk clears his throat. "Picking up your father's parcel?" he asks as he fumbles with the packages lined up on the back shelf. Fixing my gaze on the cabinet, I feel the memory rising in the back of my throat like thick bile. I'd snuck out, like I did most every night, to meet Michael, and on the way home, I noticed the soft flicker of candlelight coming from inside the apothecary. Creeping closer, I found Michael's dad opening a hidden compartment behind the cabinet of hair tonics and shaving tools. My heart started pounding against my ribs when I saw my father step from the shadows to inspect the tidy rows of secreted glass bottles. Some were filled with what looked like dried bits of jerky, others a deep red liquid. But there was one in particular that caught his eye. Pressing my forehead against the warm glass to get a better view, I saw an ear covered in white, small pustules, suspended in murky liquid. I went to put my hand over my mouth, but I accidentally bashed my knuckle against the glass, drawing their attention. Though I denied seeing anything, Mr. Welk insisted that I be punished on the spot. "A loss of respect is a slippery slope," he said. The heat of the switch coming down on my backside only seemed to cement the image in my mind. I never spoke of it, not even to Michael, but I know those were the remains of the girls who were poached during their grace year, their bits and pieces being sold on the black market as an aphrodisiac and youth serum. Father was a man of medicine, working on cures for disease. I always got the sense that he thought of the black market as superstition, nothing more than going back to the Dark Ages. That's why I never expected him to be so vain, so low, so desperate as to be a customer. And for what? So he could have the stamina to father a precious son? That earlobe belonged to someone's daughter, someone my father might have treated when she was ill or patted on the head at church. I wondered what he'd do if I was the one in those little glass bottles. Would he still want to eat my skin, drink my blood, suck the very marrow from my bones? "Oh, I almost forgot," Mr. Welk says as he thrusts the rough brown paper-wrapped package into my hands. "Happy Veiling Day!" Tearing my eyes away from the cabinet, from their dirty little secret, I give him my best smile. Because soon I'll be coming into my magic, and he should pray that I burn through every last bit of it before I come home. As the church bell tolls, men, women, and children rush toward the square. "It's too early for the gathering," someone whispers. I heard there's a punishment, a man says to his wife. But it's not a full moon, she replies. Did they find a usurper? A young boy tugs on his mother's bustle. I crane my head around the crowd, into the square, and sure enough, the guards are rolling out the staircase for the gallows. The squeaky wheels send a jagged chill through my blood. As we gather around the punishment tree, I'm searching for a hint of what's about to happen. But everyone stares straight ahead, as if transfixed by the dying light glinting off the cold steel branches. I wonder if this is what Hans was trying to tell me. If it was some kind of warning. Father Edmund steps forward to address the crowd, his white robes clinging to his bulbous shape. On our most sacred eve, a grave matter has been brought to the attention of the council. I don't know if I'm just being paranoid, but my mother's eyes seem to dart in my direction. The dreams. I swallow so hard, I'm sure everyone can hear it. Searching the crowd for Michael, I find him near the front. Could he have routed me out? Was he so angry at me that he could have told the council about the girl from my dreams? Clint Welk will speak on behalf of the council, Father Edmund says. As Michael's father steps forward, it feels like my heart is going to burst through my ribcage. My palms are sweaty. My mouth is chalk dry. Penny and Clara must sense my distress because they nuzzle in a little closer on either side of me. Standing before us in perfect alignment with the punishment tree, Mr. Welk lowers his head as if in prayer. But I swear I catch the rise of his cheekbones, the hint of a smile. I feel sick. Every sin I've ever committed runs through my mind, but there are too many to count. I got too comfortable, careless. I should have never spoken about the dreams. I should have never had them at all. Maybe I secretly wanted this to happen. Maybe I wanted to be caught. Just as I'm getting ready to speak up, promise to repent, vow to rid myself of this magic and be good from now on, Mr. Welk's lips part. I'm watching his tongue, waiting for it to move to the roof of his mouth to form a T. But instead, he presses his lips together to form an M. Mayor Fallow, come forth. I let out a gasp of pent-up air, but no one seems to notice. Maybe every girl in the square did the same. Despite our differences, that's the one thing we all share in: the fear of being named. As Mrs. Fallow walks to the front, the women push forward to spit and jeer. My mother, always the first among them. I don't know why she feels the need to rub salt in the wound. Mrs. Fallow was always kind to me. In my 4th year, I'd gotten lost in the woods. She found me, took me by the hand, and led me home. She didn't scold my mother. She didn't tattle on her that I was out where I shouldn't be. And this is how my mother thanks her? It makes me feel ashamed to be her daughter. Focusing in on the gate, I try to escape in my mind. But Mrs. Fallow's measured steps, the swish of her underskirts, burrow their way into my senses like the softest of death knells. I don't want to look at her. It's not out of disgust or shame. I feel like it could just as easily be me. Michael knows it. Hans knows it. My mother, too. Maybe they all do. But I owe her my full attention. She needs to know that I remember, that I won't forget her. She looks like a ghost as she passes. Pale, papery skin, salt and pepper braid lying limp against her curved spine. Her husband shadowing her like a bad omen. I wonder if she knew her time was up, if she could feel it coming. Mayor Fallow, you stand accused of harboring your magic, shouting obscenities in your sleep, speaking in the devil's tongue. I can't imagine Mrs. Fallow raising her voice above a whisper, let alone shouting obscenities. But her season has changed. She bore no sons. Her girls have all been assigned to the labor houses. Her womb is a cold, barren wasteland. She has no use. Well, what do you have to say for yourself? Mr. Welk prods. Other than the thin stream of liquid trailing over the tip of her worn leather boot, she gives away nothing. I want to shake her. I want to tell them she's sorry. Beg for mercy so she can be sent to the outskirts. But she just stands there in silence. Very well, Mr. Welk announces. On behalf of God and the chosen men, I hereby sentence you to the gallows. By law, the women, wives, laborers, and children are required to watch a punishment, and choosing to do this on Veiling Day is no accident. They want to send us away with a message. Before climbing the rickety steps, Mrs. Fallow looks to her husband, perhaps waiting for a last-minute reprieve. But it never comes. And in that moment, I know if she had any magic left in her, she would use it. She would choke the life out of him, the entire council, maybe all of us. And I can't say I'd blame her. When she finally reaches the top of the platform and they place the rope around her neck, she opens her hand, revealing a small red bloom. It's so tiny, I wonder if anyone else notices it. Right before she steps off the ledge, it hits me like a cast iron kettle. Scarlet red, 5 delicate petals. It's the same flower from my dreams. I start pushing to the front. I need to stop this. I need to ask her where she got it, what it means. My mother grabs me, squeezing my hand. It's not a nurturing squeeze. It's rough and tight. Stand down, child. Do not bring shame on this family it says. And so I stand there with the others, watching the red petals dance with every spasm, every final impulse, until her hand finally goes limp. There's a moment of silence that follows every hanging. Sometimes it feels like it stretches on forever, like they want us to dwell in it for as long as possible. Dwell is the right word. To be domiciled, take up residence, to abide. But this time it feels too short. Like they don't want us to really think about what just happened, how wrong it was. Mr. Welk steps to the front, seemingly oblivious to the macabre sight of her corpse, swaying gently behind him, or maybe in spite of it. And now there are 13 eligible men, he announces as he motions toward Mr. Fallow. Mr. Fallow stands with his hands clasped piously in front of him. Geezer Fallow. I can't stop thinking about seeing him this morning in the square. He seemed happy as a lark, not a man who was about to condemn his wife to death, but a man who was on the hunt for a new one. As the crowd slowly begins to disperse, instead of backing away from the others, I push forward. I don't want to see Mrs. Fallow up close, but I need to find that flower. I need to know that it's real. But Michael stands in front of me like a brick wall. We need to talk. I forgive you, I say as I peer around him, scanning the ground for the bloom. You forgive me. This isn't a good time, I say as I drop to my knees to look. Where could it be? Maybe it slipped through the cracks. Maybe it's wedged between the cobblestones. There you are. Kirsten bounces on her tiptoes in front of him. Is everything all set? She whispers. Michael clears his throat. He only does that when he's at a complete loss for words. Oh, I didn't see you down there, Kirsten says through her tight smile. We're going to be the best of friends. Isn't that right, Michael? Okay, lovebirds. Michael's father clamps his hand over his shoulder to pull him away. You'll have plenty of time for that later. Right now, we have a choosing ceremony to attend. Kirsten squeals in delight and flutters off. At last, I think I'm free when I'm yanked to my feet from behind. The guards are herding the women back toward the church. Wait! There was a flower, I start to yell. But one of the women elbows me hard in the ribs. I lose my breath. I lose my bearings. I get swept up in the crowd, and the further I get from Mrs. Fallow's swaying body, the less I'm certain the bloom was ever there to begin with. Maybe this is how it starts, how I lose myself to the magic lurking inside of me. But even if it was real, what would it matter anyway? After all, it's just a flower, and I'm only one girl. Before all the women are locked inside the chapel to await the veils, we're counted. Normally, this would be my cue to make a round, do something annoying to get myself noticed, which would be followed by a swift admonishment from my mother to keep quiet and behave. I'd then sneak into the confessional booth, and disappear through Father Edmund's quarters. That was always the creepiest part, the smell of laudanum and loneliness seeping from his bedchamber. But there will be none of that tonight. Even though I'm not getting a veil, the girls who receive one will want to rub it in, soaking up the envy and disappointment in the room like emaciated ticks. Standing with my back against the curtain of the confessional booth, I grip the oxblood velvet with hungry fingers. It's killing me that I won't be able to witness my own year. But if I close my eyes, I can feel the hay itching my nose, smell the ale and musk wafting up to the loft, hear the names of the girls escape their feverish lips. I already know the prettiest girls with superior breeding and gentle graces will get a veil. But there's always at least one wild card. I scan the room, wondering which one it will be. Meg Fisher looks the part, but she has a strange savage streak. You can see it in her shoulders, the way they roll forward when she feels threatened, like a wolf trying to decide whether to attack or retreat. Or Amy Dumont, delicate, sweet. She would make for a docile wife, but her hips are too narrow. Bettable to be sure, but not sturdy enough to withstand childbirth. Of course, some men like breakable things. They like to break them. "Bless us, Father," Mrs. Miller says as she attempts to lead the women in prayer. "Please guide the men. Let them use your holy voice to do your bidding." It takes everything I have not to roll my eyes. By now, the men will have cracked open a second barrel, telling tall tales of the women in the outskirts, the wicked things they'll do for coin, bragging about all their bastards roaming the woods, hunting for a girl to poach. "Amen," the women say, one after the other. God forbid they do anything in unison. This is the one night a year the women are allowed to congregate without the men. You'd think it would be our opportunity to talk, share, let it all out. Instead, we stand isolated and petty, sizing each other up, jealous for what the other one has, consumed by hollow desires. And who benefits from all this one-uppery? The men. We outnumber them 2-1, and yet here we are, locked in a chapel, waiting for them to decide our fate. Sometimes I wonder if that's the real magic trick. I wonder what would happen if we all said what we really felt, just for one night. They couldn't banish us all. If we stood together, they'd have to listen. But with rumors swirling about a usurper among us, no one is willing to take that risk, not even me. "Do you have your sights set on a particular labor house?" Mrs. Daniels asks, eyeing my red ribbon. As she leans in, I get a whiff of pure iron. but I also smell the decay. No doubt she's been using Gracier blood to try to hang on to her youth. I mean, if you don't get a veil, of course, she adds. I think about giving her a polite, rehearsed answer. But her husband's on the council, and now that Michael and I are on the outs, maybe she can be of use. The fields, I reply, bracing myself for the cluck of disapproval. But she's already moved on to her next victim. She didn't really want an answer. She just wanted to infect me with fear and doubt. Tierney James. Mrs. Pearson, Tommy's mother, beckons me over with a single wizened claw. She came back from her Gracier, missing the other 4 fingers on her right hand. Frostbite, I presume. Let me look at you, girl, she says as she juts out her bottom lip to survey me. Good teeth, decent hips. You seem healthy enough, she says as she gives my braid a hard tug. Pardon, June says, coming to my rescue. I need to borrow my sister for a moment. As we're walking away, Mrs. Pearson says, I know you. You're the oldest James girl. The one who can't get pregnant. The one with no bairn. I don't care if she only has 6 fingers, I say as I clench my fists and start to head back. But June pulls me away. Breathe, Tierney, she whispers as she leads me to the other side of the room. You're going to have to learn to control that temper of yours. You don't want to make enemies going into your Gracier. It's going to be hard enough for you as it is. But everything can change with a seed of kindness, she says as she pats my arm before letting me go to join Ivy. I follow her with my eyes, wondering what she meant by that. Ivy's stroking her prized belly, bragging about how she can tell it's a boy, I swear. She got all of my mother's vanity, but none of the tact. June stands by her side, smiling, but I can see the strain in the corners of her mouth. Even June must have a breaking point. Look at Mrs. Haynes, someone says behind me, which sets off a string of agitated whispers. I wonder if she let another man see her with her hair down. I bet he caught her out in the meadow again, looking at the stars. Did anyone see her ankles? Maybe she's the usurper they've been searching for. Don't be daft. If that were the case, she'd be dead by now, another woman snaps. As Mrs. Haynes walks down the center aisle toward the altar, the women stand back, giving her a wide berth, their eyes affixed to the blunt end of her lopped-off braid, splayed out in anger, in violence. We're forbidden from cutting our own hair, but if a husband sees fit, he can punish his wife by cutting off her braid. A few of the women pull their plaits over their shoulders for comfort, but most avert their eyes, as if her shame might rub off on one of them. It's not until she's safely tucked away in the front pew that they resume their vapid conversations. The whiff of rose oil perfumes the air as Kirsten slips by with Jessica and Jenna trailing behind her. You'd think they might be triplets, the way they move in perfect synchronicity. But Kirsten seems to have that effect on whomever she chooses to shine her light upon. With or without magic, it's a powerful gift. They quickly zero in on Gertrude Fenton, who's standing in the corner, doing her best to blend in to the cherry-paneled wall. But her fine dress won't let her. "Don't you look fetching in that blush-colored lace?" Kirsten says, toying with the edging on Gertrude's sleeve. "The gloves are a nice touch." Jenna snickers. She thinks if she covers her knuckles, she'll get a fail. Jessica whispers something in Gertrude's ear. Her cheeks turn crimson. I don't need to hear it to know what she said, what she called her. Up until last year, Kirsten and Gertrude were inseparable. But all of that changed when Gertrude was charged with depravity. Since she still possessed a white ribbon, the details of her offense were kept hidden. But I think that made it all the worse. Our imaginations ran wild with what it could be. And when they dragged her into the square, whipping her knuckles clear to the bone, that's when I first heard the name, whispered from girl to girl. Dirty Gertie. From that moment on, any chance of receiving a veil was obliterated. And still, they pick at her. It reminds me of my mother and the other hyenas, always ready to cast the first stone. A part of me wants to throw myself on the pyre, give Gertrude a chance to escape. But that goes against my plan. I promised myself I was going to get through my grace year with as little fuss as possible, and that means steering clear of Kirsten and the like. As much as I hate watching them dismantle such an easy target, maybe it's time Gertrude learns to toughen up a bit. The year ahead will be full of terrors, much, much worse than Kirsten. I've heard, as long as we stay within the encampment, no harm will come to us. It's considered hallowed ground. Not even the poachers would dare cross the barrier for fear of being cursed. So what made the girls leave the safety of the encampment in the first place? Did their magic consume them? Make them do foolish things? No matter the cause, some of us will only be returning to Garner County in pretty little bottles. But at least that's an honorable death. The worst fate by far is not returning at all. Some say vengeful ghosts are to blame. Some say it's the wilderness, madness that makes them take their own lives. But if our bodies go unaccounted for, if we disappear, vanish into thin air, our sisters will bear the brunt of our shame and be banished to the outskirts. I look at Penny and Clara playing behind the altar, and I know, no matter what, dead or alive, I need to make it back to the county for their sakes. As the hours tick by and the refreshments disappear, the tension in the room is palpable. I want to believe we can be different, but when I look around the church, at the women comparing the lengths of their braids, reveling in another woman's punishment, scheming and clawing for every inch of position. I can't help thinking, the men might be right. Maybe we are incapable of more. Maybe without the confines placed upon us, we'd rip each other to shreds like a pack of outskirt dogs. The veils are coming! The veils are coming! Mrs. Wilkerson finally calls down from the bell tower as she pulls the rope, the manic dull clang, the pinching of cheeks, the stomping of heels, kicking up the stench of desperation. The doors open and a hush falls over the chapel, as if God himself is holding his breath. Kirsten's father is the first to step inside, his face a perfect portrait of maudlin hope. As he places the veil on her head, Kirsten looks at every single one of us, making sure we're all choking on her good fortune. She's not only been veiled, she's the first. An honor. Jenna and Jessica's veils aren't far behind. No surprise there. They've been setting the bait since their 9th year, with diminutive gazes and clear-skinned smiles. God help the boys who fell into that trap. Mr. Fenton walks in, his face ruddy from drink or emotion, maybe both. But when I see him tenderly place the veil on Gertrude's head, I can't help but feel a twinge of happiness for her. Somehow, against all odds, she showed them all. One after another, the fathers file in. The pretty maids are veiled, and with each one down, I feel the chains begin to loosen around my chest. I'm one step closer to building a life on my own terms. But when my father enters the chapel, the veil held out in front of him like a stillborn calf, it feels as if I'm being gutted with the dull end of an axe. This can't be. I stagger back against the sea of women, but they only push me forward, rejecting me like a heavy tide. Through bleary eyes, I look to my mother. She seems just as surprised as I am, wavering on her feet. But she manages to raise her chin, giving me a stern signal to behave. I feel the heat take over my face, but it's not embarrassment. I'm furious. And as I look at the other girls stationed around the room, who would have killed for a veil, I feel a pang of guilt. How is this even possible? I've done nothing to encourage a suitor. In fact, I've done just the opposite. I openly ridiculed every boy who showed even a glimmer of interest. I look to my father, but his eyes won't leave the veil. Scraping my memory, I search for a hint of who it might be. When it hits me, Tommy Pearson. My stomach roils when I think of him hollering at me when I dropped the mulberries. The way he looked at me when he said he liked them feisty. I searched the room for Mrs. Pearson to find her looking on with great interest. Kirsten gives me a ghost of a smile from beneath the lacy gauze, and I wonder if she knew. If Michael's behind this. Just today he was defending Tommy, said he wasn't that bad? Did he talk Tommy into claiming me to save me from the fields? He said he only wanted what's best for me. Is this what he thinks I deserve? As my father places the veil on my head, he still can't meet my eyes. He knows this is nothing but a slow death for me. I've practiced every possible expression from despair to indifference, but I never imagined I'd have to fake happiness. With trembling fingers, he lowers the veil over my raging eyes. Through the dainty netting, my eyes dart all around the room. The jealousy, the whispers, the knowing glances. I was the wild card. Tonight, I became a wife. All because a boy claimed it so.